the former president of the party. Good afternoon to you, Lord Pack. Ed Davies says this is a humiliating U-turn for the government.
Yeah, it is all very chaotic. I mean, at least at the end of it, it sounds like we will get the right decision, which is that voters will get their democratic say as they should do. And we're going to avoid, for example, the ludicrous situation where some councillors who had been elected for a 4-year term of office were due to end up getting 7 years, 3 whole extra years in power without voters getting a say. So been chaotic, but it might at least be the right decision that we get out of this.
Yeah, it's clear your stance. The government was saying that, look, if we want to have reform, then let's wait, let's let those reforms happen. But that didn't hold any weight with you.
No, simply because there's been a lot of local government reform in the past over many decades, many different rounds of local government reform, and none of them have required election cancellations across multiple years in the way that the government was proposing this time round. So I know the government keeps on saying, oh, we're just following precedent. But when you look at what's happened in the past, it wasn't at all what the government was proposing this time.
And it's clear that both the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats have picked up on the fact that the government is repeatedly making a lot of U-turns. And it was just only a few hours ago Sir Keir Starmer said there won't be any more.
Yeah, I mean, that was perhaps a slightly risky comment for any Prime Minister to make, perhaps particularly this one. But I do think it also illustrates how we need to change the law so that in future there will, of course, on occasion, be circumstances in which an election might need to be postponed. But in future, it should be that that can only be done with the full scrutiny and full agreement of Parliament, rather than ministers being able to push through cancellations in the way that they were trying to do this time. It's a really good example, actually, of how Parliament making the government stop and think actually ends up being better for the government as well as better for Parliament and for democracy as a whole.
And these are the amendments to change the law that the Liberal Democrats, that's what you're referring to, isn't it, that you're putting
Yeah, absolutely.
Forward?
We were debating one of my amendments on that last week in Parliament, and the government minister was just resolutely stonewalling it. But I do hope the U-turn this week will make them think again, and when we come back to debating these amendments in Parliament in a few weeks' time, that the government will see sense and realise that actually having to have your plans properly scrutinised isn't an annoyance or something that gets in the way. It's something that stops you making mistakes and stops you ending up with embarrassments like today's.
So you're calling on Keir Starmer to back these now, rather than, as you say, stonewalling them?
Absolutely. I mean, the clear lesson from what's happened is the government rushed into something without thinking it through properly. And, you know, any sensible person would think, well, OK, we rushed into something. The lesson there we need to learn for next time is to have a better process that means there's full scrutiny before such a decision like this goes ahead in future.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because it's interesting, isn't it? The Liberal Democrats put forward this amendment to change the law, but it's actually Reform's victory, isn't it? It's Reform that took the government to court about it.
Certainly, the fact that our judicial system has been able to hold the government to account in this case to help protect and preserve our democracy is very welcome compared to some of the sad news that we see from other countries around the world. But fundamentally, the mistake was the government's decision to rush ahead, and the lesson to learn from that is change the rules so that future governments can't rush ahead in the same way.
Yeah, we was just seeing pictures, by the way, just for our viewers to know that those were the latest pictures from Downing Street, where Keir Starmer's receiving the King of Jordan this afternoon. A lot happening for him. He's got a lot of accountability and questions today. I want to discuss further with you about Reform, because Reform says they are the only party that is holding the government to account, and they are the ones that have achieved this, not the Liberal Democrats.
I would say not at all. If you look at who has been most effective at raising these issues in Parliament, it's actually not been Reform's MPs, it's been Liberal Democrats. And likewise, if you look in, say, council by-elections week after week, you can see that Reform definitely are doing, making some gains in those by-elections, but we are making gains as well. And actually, the real electoral contest in so many areas is ending up being Reform versus Liberal Democrat.
Lord Mark Pack, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon to discuss this breaking news. Thank you.